Hi,
All
Meany.
right.
Hi.
Hey, Angelina.
Hey,
How are
how
you
are you doing?
doing?
I'm good. So today I read an article by Jerry Liu from LlamaIndex about introducing query pipelines. So maybe we can talk about this because this is really interesting, and I think we're using it. How
hmm
about that? Okay, my first question is, can you tell us a little bit more about what are query pipelines?
Sure. Yeah, that's actually, yeah, I read the article more or less, and it's a very interesting article. Um, so Llama Index is essentially just keep updating their library. So they're adding more and more features. And one of the very recent um, addition to the library is query pipeline. So what is query pipeline? This query pipeline is very nutshell. Here you can see also the definition is a set of APIs, right? That let users connect different components of the RAG together very easily. So if you think about RAG, right, retrieval augmented generation, which is um, essentially when you connect a large language model to an external knowledge base, then typically like very high level, we call it RAG because LLM doesn't have access to real-time data. And how to fix that problem is by giving it external data as part of the prompt. Okay. So search plus LLM prompting, simply called RAG, in a very layman term. And then part of the RAG is essentially to connect different components together. And the first step is to create a query pipeline. So let me just give you an example about, right, what exactly a query pipeline is. So if you take a look at this picture here, let's say we have the query. So let's say we are going to create a RAG application, which is, let's say, question answering. So the user asks a question, and then the end result would be the response coming from the LLM. So what happens here, all of these, squares, they are essentially just different components of the pipeline. And the way that we connect them together is by using a query pipeline. So query pipeline is nothing but, as I said, a set of API where you can use to connect different components of your LLM together, just glue them together to essentially be able to generate the final response. So query pipeline has a lot of different modules. So think about it. When you give the user query, first you need to create a prompt, and then you need to pass the prompt to the LLM. LLM then needs to, for instance, go and search the vector database to retrieve some of the very relevant pieces of text from the vector database. Then after that, what you usually need to do is to re-rank the results, right? Based on some extra criteria that you might have. And eventually you want to generate the response based on the original user query and the prompt and the context coming from the retriever. And then you would generate, or LLM would generate the response. So in order to essentially create such a pipeline, LlamaIndex has introduced a concept called query pipeline, which let you do that very easily. So that's query pipeline.
Yeah, so to make this easier to understand, and use case can be maybe something like ChatGPT plus a bunch of document that a user might have, and you want to chat over your documents, and you want to get answers from your documents because you cannot really get those answers from ChatGPT directly. But with something like this running behind the scene, you can have a chatbot talking with your document and retrieve information from your document, essentially. Right? These are
Yes.
all the
So
things. Yeah.
ChatGPT would work just as the LLM part here,
hmm
right? But then you need to set up other components to create the prompt, to set up the retriever, to search through the documents, and then to re-rank them, and then to basically to give it to a module to synthesize the response. and generate the response and give it back to you. Yes.
Yeah, awesome. This is a great explanation of this query pipeline. And since we're talking about RAG systems, how about let's walk through an advanced RAG technique through some illustrations. You have one?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, I already have opened these two blog posts, right, which are somehow mentioned in this original Medium post. So this is a advanced RAG architecture here. So if you think about it, as I mentioned at the beginning, that RAG is essentially just connecting LLM to an external knowledge base. And the very basic implementation of a RAG or vanilla RAG is nothing but you give the query, let's say you have the query, you give it to a model to embed that query, and then you would search through the vector database to find the relevant, chunks of text that are potentially helpful to generate the response. So this is, the search part. And when you let's say retrieve the top results from the vector database, that's context, right? So context has the retrieve results, the original query, and let's say, some other external, maybe like history of the chat and things like that. And yet you pass all of them to an LLM, and then it would generate the answer for you. This is the very basic pipeline of a RAG. However, this has a lot of, this is good when you are, creating some prototype, but in production ready applications, you need a lot of other techniques. And here you can see an advanced RAG kind of illustrated in this diagram. So so you can see the original RAG, like the components are here, but there are a lot of extra components. So let me just go over this diagram very briefly. So in a production-ready RAG, in real, practical applications, when you have the query, instead of giving the query like directly to the LLM to search through vector database, then you want to essentially pre-process it. How? You want to do multiple things here. One thing is you pass the query to a component called query transformation component. What it does, it's going to, for instance, rewrite the query. If the question is very short, for instance, then this module will add some other keywords or rewrite the question in a better way by adding more details, right?
Mhm.
So this is called query transformation. And then after that, right, you just pass the generated query, the output from this result from this component to another module, which is called query routing.
Mhm.
So query routing is a module which essentially decides which path to go, right? And so this is actually very important because more often than not, when you have a question, right, you don't want to simply just go and search the database. Maybe you, for instance, want to do some other things first and then go through the database. So this query routing lets you do that. And then another, let's say after you decide which path to go, for instance, you ask a question, what is this document about, right? Then instead of going and searching through the vector database, you may want first to go and search through all of the summaries of the documents first to find out which document will actually answer that question. And then you go and just use the text from that particular document to summarize it. So this query routing let you do that. There is another component called fusion retrieval. So fusion retrieval is like a hybrid retrieval. We have a semantic retrieval or search, and we have like um, TF-IDF search, right? A sparse search. So fusion retrieval is when you combine the search result that comes from the semantic search as well as for instance, the TF-IDF or BM25. So you do two different searches and combine the results from these two together, and that will be the fusion retrieval. So when you do that, and you have a list of relevant text results, right? Then you need to pre-process them or post-process them. And here, one really important task that people usually do is to re-rank the results. Maybe you have searched through the vector database and you have a bunch of top 10 results, but you want to again go over these top 10 results and re-rank them based on some criteria. Maybe you already know some metadata about them, so you can kind of change the positions, move some of the results to the top and the other ones that are less relevant to the bottom. So that's called re-ranking. And when you re-rank the top results, then you would just kind of pass all of these top results with the original query and the prompt to the LLM. So this context is the combination of these three things. You pass them to the LLM and LLM would generate the final answer. So this is like, now you can see there are at least 4 different extra modules that are involved compared to the very basic RAG here.
Yeah, absolutely. This can be quite involved and quite complex. If I mean, we have we also published a book on a practical approach to RAG systems last year, where we're putting a lot of our own experiences in when we are using LlamaIndex and LangChain building something. So I'll share that share the link in the description of the video. And if anyone wants to learn more about RAG system and how to use it to build applications, we'll produce more of these videos in the future.
Absolutely. Yes. This is, I strongly recommend, audience to read these blog posts. So if you don't mind, please make sure that, also you share the links to these blog posts. They are
We'll
very
do.
interesting. Yes, very well written, and they explain in details. And if they have questions, they can leave comments to the video and we can answer them for sure.
Sounds good. All right, see you next time, matey.
Sure.